I am a mailman. Did I just delivered to a non-existent street? Hello. Before I start, I want to make a few points known. First, for my job security and to discourage people from investigating, I will not divulge the exact location of my employment. However, I can say it's close to the Delaware Water Gap in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and I work as a letter carrier for the United States Postal Service. Secondly, I am in no way a writer, but due to the events that I experienced, I feel compelled to write this so others can read it and maybe come up with theories of their own, so I hope you excuse any grammatical errors. Thirdly, this may sound humorous, but I feel it's important to mention that I am not a drug user, so I can confirm whatever happened was not due to being high, but at one point I entertained the fact I was, I was working at that moment, after all, so it's unlikely. Lastly, this took place around mid-November when it starts getting dark around 3 p.m. So let's begin. As I mentioned, I am a mail carrier or mailman, as it's more commonly called. It's not an easy job. You might think that walking to houses and dropping mail and packages on a set route would be simple. But there's more to it than just doing your usual route. Whenever another mail carrier has the day off or calls out sick, their route gets divided into sections, so multiple mail carriers are tasked with completing it. This is what we call pivots, because you pivot from your normal mail route to someone else's route. To know if you have a pivot, you check a slip of paper on your table once you clock in. This was standard procedure, so when I saw the slip of paper on my table, I knew I had extra work for the day. I sighed because it meant working more than 8 hours. The slip said Route 76. In our office, we have routes designated by numbers, and my route number is 44. So, today, I was working all of Route 44 plus a section of Route 76. But something was odd about this pivot. Our office only has about 50 routes. I've never heard of Route 76. I took it to my manager and asked about it. He said it was a route from the neighboring town, which was shorthanded and needed help. He handed the paper back and told me to read the additional information at the bottom. The paper stated I was to pick up the letters for this pivot from a relay box near where I would be delivering. I noted the instructions and address of the relay box, loaded my truck with my own mail, and headed out to do my route. It was a chilly day, typical of late fall, but otherwise it was a standard day. Once I finished my route, I input the address of the pivot into my phone and drove to the location of the Route 76 pivot. It was 3 p.m., and it was getting dark already. I arrived at the relay box location. This town was smaller and more rural than my own. I opened the relay box and found a tray of letters. I loaded them into my truck and headed to the street, Marlborough Road. I parked, grabbed the letters, and started delivering them. It was a straightforward street ending in a dead end. As I walked, I crossed over what seemed to be an abandoned street, a dirt road leading into the woods. But it wasn't part of my pivot, so I ignored it and continued. After finishing my pivot, I got a message on my postal scanner. Pivot Route 76, return to relay box, additional mail inside. I was annoyed but knew it meant more overtime pay, so I returned to the relay box. It was already dark, and the relay box was illuminated by a lone street lamp. Inside was a handful of letters bound by a rubber band. I was relieved it would be about 20 minutes of extra work. The address was Notch Road. I typed Notch Road into my GPS and saw it was off Marlborough Road, leading to the dirt road I had crossed earlier. No way that's the road I'm delivering to. It was a dirt road leading to the woods, I thought. So at that moment in my head, I decided that I should go there to take a picture of the dirt road and send it to management to show there was nothing there. But when I arrived, the dirt road was now a freshly paved street, and a lone sign now stood in the corner that said, Notch Road. Confused, I wondered if I had imagined the dirt road. I pondered at the strange situation, but I had a job to do, so I shrugged it off, started my truck, and turned into Notch Road. The road felt oddly smooth, like I was hovering above it. The street was illuminated by what seemed like street lamps, but the light sources came from the tops of the pine trees, as if the trees themselves were street lamps disguised to look like trees. After several minutes, I arrived at the end of the road. There were 4 houses, 2 on each side, all looking like they were from the 1950s. The lawns were well kept, and each driveway had a 1950s Chevrolet parked in it. Felt like I had driven into the past. I parked facing away from the houses. This way, once I am done, I can just drive off away, but once I turned off the engine and opened the door, that's when I noticed the eerie silence. No animal sounds, no wind, no rustling leaves. There was also a faint smell of burning wood, but none of the houses had chimney smoke. I approached the first house, dropped the letters in the old mailbox, and felt like I was being watched. I turned around, but the house's windows were pitch black. I shrugged it off and continued to the second house, starting to feel a bit uneased, but I pressed on and delivered to the second house with no issue. At the third house, as soon as I dropped the mail, I heard a faint voice. I couldn't make out what was said. All I know is that it sounded raspy with coughing in between. I assumed it was the homeowner possibly smoking and coughing, so I dismissed it as anything else. I made my way to the last house, wanting to finish and leave. As I dropped the letters, that's when the most strange thing happened. The door of that house slowly crept open, revealing pitch-black darkness inside and a hot breeze hitting my face as if I just opened an oven. Frozen in terror, I felt something watching me from behind me, and I had the feeling whatever it was moving close. Panic took over, and I sprinted to my truck without looking back. I heard doors of the other houses banging open and what appeared to be voices shouting at me as I ran. I jumped into my truck, started it, and drove off. In the mirrors, I saw dark figures standing by the houses, watching me leave. They looked like dark silhouettes with faint white lights where their eyes supposed to be. I quickly made it out of Notch Road, making a hard left turn, and sped away. Back at the post office, I noticed my truck was covered in ash. I reported my experience to my manager, who chuckled and said there had never been a Notch Road, only a dirt road leading to the woods owned by the town. Ever since the pivot on Route 76, I've been uneasy at work. My mind is flooded with theories, like, did I indirectly enter the left-right game? Or, maybe the burning scent was of some psychedelic-inducing plant, and maybe I was caught in a trip. But this all seems too real to me. A few weeks later, I found a postcard in my mailbox. The picture was solid black, and the message read, "We are glad you visited us. Come again soon. Notch Road." So that was my experience. What do you guys think? Like I said in the story, I still feel uneasy at the situation. But since getting that postcard, I have to wonder, is this an elaborate prank or something else? I am going tomorrow to visit the mailman who frequents Route 76 and ask him about Notch Road. If I hear anything interesting, I'll share it.